With all that out of the way, time to introduce our first speaker. I'm really pleased that we've been joined by Jasmina Makljenovic from University of Cambridge Medical Library, and she's here to talk to us all about how she went through the process of applying to become an AFHEA Associate Fellowship. Is that right? Got that right, thank you. So thank you so much, Jasmina. Over to you.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to talk about my associate fellowship. It was a very enjoyable experience for me from the start. I was a bit apprehensive. You'll hear about it. So I hope that everyone, library assistant primarily, listening to this will find this informative, hopefully useful. But if you have library assistants in your team, I really encourage you to tell them about this opportunity. It's really good. So before begin, shall I just quickly introduce myself? Well, you already heard, I work in Medical Library Cambridge. So yes, you already heard, I work in Medical Library Cambridge as a library assistant. I'm part of the collection management team. Previously, I have worked in cataloging department and acquisition, so it was always collection management for me. I'll talk about my journey to associate fellowship. So I think the best way to start is to actually say how I found out about it. Well, I found out about my librarian, who is here, hello Ella, and she recommended that I could go for it. And I have to say, I was really surprised at first, because I really thought that's not something that, well, library assistant like people like me can go for it, because my job doesn't really involve any direct teaching, planning. I'm not organizing any sessions with students, as some colleagues from my team. So really, I was really surprised. That's in short. But then if she suggested, then I said, okay, I'll go back, I'll think about it, see what it is all about, find out more, and consider it. So yes, I was wrong in thinking that is not something for me. So why? So first, I went to advanced what is it called, associate fellowship website, applicant guidance. I read every possible thing that I could find online. At first it didn't really make it easier, because I didn't really understand still why is this for me. And then because it was lots of academic language, things that I didn't initially translate. And what, in short, it says recognize individual effectiveness of practice in teaching and or support of learning as demonstrated through evidence of meeting the relevant criteria. So what that translates into is really how people in assistant roles can support and do actually support students' learning. That is really what it is in short. There are different types of, I should have mentioned that before, different types and categories of fellowship. So there's principal, there's a fellowship, then senior fellowship, and then there's associate fellowship, which actually is for people in my role, for all the people who actually support students' learning. So once I figured that out, I realized, okay, now I think I can actually go for it and reconsider what is it that I do and in what way it supports students' learning. So basically in my head, I translated all this as official recognition of my everyday jobs and in what way they have impact on students' learning. So the next thing is I had to recognize and find what is it that I do that actually supports students' learning. In my head, it was really, well, my everyday job, everything in a way I do, it supports their learning. How do I find, how do I really choose and prove what is the, how is it that I really support them? So it didn't make it any easier. So this slide is adapted from Associate Fellowship Applicant Guidance, where I was still looking and trying to figure out how do I fit in this? And still the language again, very much, I think is super academic for me. And I said, not another foreign language. No, how do I translate this? So there, the main thing is, if the main requirement really is to provide a written piece of evidence in a reflective manner. And it's all about areas of activities. Activities really translates to everyday job. And there are many, I mean, five areas of activity listed here, but really is just thinking hard about what is it my job and how that supports students' learning. Again, the same thing, but when I first read it, said design and plan learning activities and or programs of study. I said, well, is this again for people who really teach and organize session and then teach and support learning, access and give feedback to learners, develop effective learning environments, or engage in continuing professional development and how that influenced my work? In a way, I could fit in any of this and not completely. So that was my first initial thought. So I said, think harder. And all these activities should be linked with professional values and core knowledge, which again, to me, sounded really, well, really super academic again. Is this really my job? But then when I think hard, and when I translated areas of activities are really that is what I do, different jobs that I do. So use of professional values, well, that underpin inform my work. And then core knowledge, that translates to what I actually need to know, to apply, to carry out my work. Well, yes, subject material, of course I do know from whatever activity I choose or every job that I choose that I do on a daily basis. I'm pretty confident I know what I'm doing, but I have to show that in my writing. I have to make a claim that for all of this. But really, the skeleton of this fellowship is, are areas of activities. Once you narrow it down to these two, and yes, I should have said that for associate fellowship, I needed to write about 2 areas of activities and incorporate at least 2 core knowledge and professional values. So at least these 2 need to feed into areas of activities. So the first thing then I did is really list some, or I narrow it down to a few jobs that I think can go into everyday activities. So what is it that I do on a daily basis? These are all activities that could fit into criteria, and probably I wouldn't be wrong if I've chosen something else. And it's really tempting to write about everything I do, but that's no, I should be selective, just the two, and really precise, and really make a claim. As I said, at first I thought, well, everything I do supports students' learning. If I catalog a book and put it out there, well, they can borrow a book, from simple things as that. So yes, for me, this was probably the hardest bit. Choose the two, and then evidence that in the best possible way, and show how you actually support students' learning. It's very also tempting to write, at least for me, because I'm part of the team, and I don't think really that it's just me who is doing all this. But in the written, when I wrote this, it really has to be written in the first person. So this is what I do. I have to make a claim about what I do. Yes, evidence, evidence, evidence. So yes, I had to be selective, and I finally narrowed it down to two activities, which from the previous chart, that was the first one was A2, which is teach, for me, in my case, support learning. And I, as an example, I've taken reading list, I mean, from the creation to put it in, putting all that online, and then how I follow that up. So it's not just about how I did something. The reason is in actual, while writing, I had to explain what is it that I do, why I do it. Well, the user group is always there, and I had to explain what I did with my work, how I evaluated that, was it effective, or if it wasn't, did I correct something? So that's really it. Once I think, well, if people are attempting to do this, I think this is really the most important thing. Once you decide what activity you want to do, then it's really, if you just write, it really explains. It was writing reflectively really helped me as well. I realized, oh, then I actually did this, and then I did this, and it goes on and on. Even though I started from the point, oh, when I started, I thought I don't have enough to write. I don't have enough to write. Then I realized, well, actually, now I have more words than required. So yes, the start and choosing activity, definitely the most important thing. And yes, as I said previously, I written about students, creating students reading lists, but also what I've done, we as a team, we created separate reading lists that supports on different subjects, which we at that time thought might be useful for students. So feel good list, well-being list, when then it started from that, but then later we developed many lists on different subjects that we, in a way, might help students, not just learning, but also well-being. So these were separate lists, but kind of also relevant. And also it was really easy then to incorporate core knowledge and professional values, because I could show that I support diverse group of students to creating this, and also apply my knowledge, and also the use of let's say new technology. At that time, University of Cambridge adopted Leganto. This is where we actually create reading lists, so I learned how to use it and how to structure it best, so it's easy for students to find reading lists, to find the material they need, how to link ebooks. So I really explain everything about that, let's say, formal side of things, how I created lists, but also what I've done with it, how I measure the analytics, do students use them at all? So that's basically just checking how many times they borrow the book from the reading lists. And then what I realized from it, well, maybe some books they can use more. So I also added the way I promote books, from physical displays to social media. So there's really, once the writing started, it really became much easier. The same goes for the second category that I've chosen. I've chosen to write about trainings and some conference that I attended, and how that actually impacted my work, and what I've taken out of these trainings and conferences, and how I actually improved my work. So my specific examples really were from the really obvious one. When I started this work, this job in medical library, I never worked previously at the issue desk. And that was a bit scary for me. Communication, I was really a bit scared of it, because I always was working behind the closed doors, which is really fine for me. So I attended then a few trainings on communication skills, and particularly useful one, Are You Listening to Me? That was, the training was called Are You Listening to Me? Where I learned how to actively listen to people, which was very useful when dealing with students, not to assume what they need or want, but that I just need to really actively listen. So this is just saying, as an example, what I learned, how I apply that, and how my job improved in consequence of that. Then really all the other, I mentioned a few conferences, and also I think one specific example was one of the conferences I found really interesting from other librarians, as I'm also dealing with not just print books, I deal also with electronic books, and I always thought that we don't promote them and people don't know enough about them really. So what I learned at one of the conferences was that how people actually, how other librarians promote their ebooks. So one example was that people really print out ebook covers, which is, well, yes, I know, printing something that is an ebook, and then attaching QR codes so students can easily find them in the library catalog. So I actually adopted this, and then I promoted some books in our library, and then again checking whether people were using ebooks and so on. So with the same as with the first evidence, once I started, there's more to feed into it. And then, of course, the core knowledge of professional values, never forget about this. So what knowledge I applied to do this, what I learned, what I learned, and also, of course, the groups, the diverse group of students, specific groups who I'm targeting in this. So yes, maybe I talked a bit too much about my example now, when I'm revisiting the whole process, actually preparing this slide, it really took me back. And I really can say it was an enjoyable experience, even though I was so scared at the beginning. In terms of practical things, how to do this is, I think I spent too much time just thinking about it and thinking how hard that is, and how still having doubts whether that's for me at all. The word fellowship itself sounds scary and not for people like me, still in my head. But then once I was over with that and really sat down, as I said previously, just make sure that you choose the activities. Once that was done, it was really easy to write about it. The first thing to remember is really, it has to be written in reflective manner. That means what I did, how I did it, how I know it was effective, and then really make a claim when I try to explain how I know that it was effective. So it has to be really clear, really specific, and really clear. But it does help. Reflective practice really influenced my job as well. The things that I didn't mention in writing really made me realize, this is the way I do this. Maybe I should check this, go back, maybe re-evaluate. So I really think this writing, in a way, affected the way I do certain things. And as I said previously, of course, professional values and core knowledge always needs to be cited when I say specific example, or who I targeted, what group of students, or specific group of students. So while I write, I was citing professional values and core knowledge. Somehow they are linked to, it has to be seen as obvious. Also, I had to do a bit of reading around the subject. So every activity after doing the written piece, there should be a little bibliography about what I've written, which for us, I think, for librarians, it's really not a difficult thing to do. And one thing I had a problem with is the word count. It really goes from, oh, I have nothing to write about, to I have a lot to write about. And then once I started, it started to grow and to grow and to grow. So I had to cut it. So as with, I'm pretty sure, in general with writing, is it can either go this or that way. And what also worked for me is when I made a routine out of this. I can't work any other way, because if I say, oh, I'll do it, then a lot of procrastination comes with it. So I really have to say myself, no, I do it on this day and that time. And once I made a routine, it really was a really quick process. and really it didn't take a lot of time at all. But once in my head, I really decided I'll go for it. Different things worked for different people, so this is what worked for me. And then, yes, I've submitted, I should have mentioned that previously, but once the work is done, there should be attached to written references, and my collection manager and my librarian submitted two nice references about me and about my work. So that really needs to go together with the whole piece. I think I haven't forgotten anything. So yes, once I've submitted, then it's just the wait, and I waited to see whether I was accepted, and I was really pleased to hear that I was. So what actually changed for me, or why actually, this probably better answer the question why. So the first thing for me was really confidence business. Whether people need that or no, but it's always good. For me, it was, oh, I really produced something. And as I said, that reflective practice really helped me. Because I suddenly, going on about everyday works can be with, yes, of course I do my job. I love my job. So yes, of course I'll do this and this, whatever's required. But when you see it in writing, then it really is a confidence boost. And then after achieving the written confirmation of my work, I really had that sense of accomplishment, which in turn really led to me accepting some project that I'm pretty sure in the past probably wouldn't go for it. So there was an opportunity for Assistance Library Forum in Cambridge for organizing committee member. So I volunteered for that. And yes, we later organized a forum, which went really well. I'm still a member of that committee. So that I really believe that it really led me to actually volunteer for stuff. I had confidence to do more things. Let's put it in simple words. And then, of course, yes, it had career development, but I think, well, with really like all the things in life, what we do, it just it can lead really to what you make out of it. So this is what I made out of it. I'm pretty sure it can lead in many different ways for different people. And of course, you get a shiny signature, which you can see here. And this is my certificate. So I hope I explained the whole journey well. And I really would encourage, as I said, if you have any assistants in your team, please tell them about this opportunity. It's a really good one. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Jasmina. That was a really fascinating talk. Thank you for that. I can see we've got quite a few comments and questions in the chat. So Beth, do you want to just run us through that? And also anybody else, please do add more questions in as we go. Put your hand up if you want to come on camera and ask questions directly. That'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Jasmine. That was a really, really interesting talk, especially hearing about your experience, because I think, especially in the chat, we've seen a lot of people sort of who can are very understanding of your experience and saying, yeah, that's, things like the alienating language and the sort of difficulty in getting your confidence up and feeling like, oh, actually, I have done a lot. A lot of our questions are around the support you've received. So Ruth's asked a question on, did you have any guidance around reflective writing, or did you have to find the guidance on writing reflectively yourself? Because it's something a lot of people struggle with when they're new to reflective writing.
Oh, yes. I have learned about reflective practice really before I started writing this. I have heard about it. It really, from what works for me is I actually read about it, and there's lots. I mean, University of Cambridge does have a training or that. I mean, it's self-led online module, but there's lots of help. And I had a colleague in my team really who previously done her fellowship. She's more senior, but I have also read her account of practice. But what helped me in the first place is that I went through that module. So I'm pretty sure, and I can later can send and find the exact training I've done, but I'm pretty sure each university has its own. It's easily found online. It really helped me to actually just make a bullet point for me. What is reflective practice? So there's lots on the subject.
That's brilliant. So another related question, did you carry on writing afterwards, either to carry on with reflection for yourself or for another audience via a blog or anything like that?
We do have a medical library blog, which I try to regularly contribute. I don't think it's that often, but I definitely do. I have written about my, well, later I mentioned that assistant library forum, so I wrote about my experience. So yeah, I mean, like with every writing, at least, I mean, for people like me, it's very daunting before you start, but once it's clear in your head, oh, this is what I want to write about, it's not that complicated. If I can do it, I'm pretty sure everyone can.
Oh, I'll have to have a look at your blogs. I imagine that'll be useful for a few people in my team
Yes,
as well. So
medical library does help.
absolutely. Another question on support. Rebecca's mentioned that, she can definitely empathise with struggling with the work out on her first draft of her AFHEA application, but she did have a mentor to ask for advice, and she was wondering if you had a mentor or any kind of peer support on your team.
In our team here, well, first, Ayla has encouraged me to do this. And the second is my colleague who is more senior. She's done it for the fellowship, not associate, but the fellowship. And I actually read hers, even though they are different. So in that sense, yes, I had a full support. And also I should mention what was really important for me, both my collection manager and the librarian encouraged me to actually have time, which is really important, to be allowed to have time to actually sit and write while I'm working, so I don't feel guilty I'm neglecting my work or something. So really, that support is also really, that actually someone actually tells you, yes, you are fine, just go and for an hour do some writing, and then I feel okay, I'm on my own now, I do the writing. But it depends what works for different people. For me, it worked that I have that kind of support, but then I go back, sit and read about it, and really have permission to write. So I did have support in terms, it really meant a lot for me that my colleague actually gave me her sent me her application so I could see at least in terms of how to structure it and how it looks like. So that was a massive support for me.
It's that, yeah, that's absolutely, especially as you say, having the time to do it all. And there's left a comment in the chat actually saying that when she did a FHEA in Cambridge, said similar experience, lots of support available, lots of courses available to support with the process. That's brilliant. I'm just going to see if we have any more questions, but yeah, there's been, if you look through the chat, there's been a lot of discussion in the chat about your experiences. I think it's really resonated with a lot of people. So really brilliant talk. Thank you, Jasmina.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you.
I had a couple of things myself, actually. I was really interested, you were describing some of the barriers that you faced, and to me, they felt like some of those were internal and some external. So your own trying to justify to yourself, is it really worth me going for this? And then, but also some of the, maybe the language barriers you had in terms of the academic thing. What to you actually felt more challenging?
Oh, that is an interesting question. What is more challenging? I think internals are definitely more challenging because the language was challenging. But once I translated it into, let's say, simple language, what I actually need to do, then it became easier. I incorporated that, let's say, that type of academic language in writing, but the internal fears are always there, aren't they? Like, is it good enough? Is I like, oh, fellowship sounds really super academic, which I'm not. So they were always there, and I guess whether is this good enough, or they are always there. So I think yes, language is scary, and what I need to do, the task is scary but once I translate it, I figure out what actually I need to do and just put in other words what I'm already doing. Okay, that is fine. I hope this answered the question well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing, really, I mean, you kind of touched on it actually, but I was, as you were talking through it, I was wondering about really the benefits towards like career progression for library assistants, and whether you feel that this really is something that we should be doing. Well, I don't know. I'm probably exposing my own ignorance here about, you know, how much it's done across the sort of country, but it'd be fascinating to get your feedback on that, and whether actually, you know, it's something that as a profession we should be really pushing on libraries, and certainly those who are interested in career progression.
When I think about this, I don't think it's one single thing that can lead really to career progression. I did my master's a couple of years ago, I mean, librarianship. So it's not a guarantee for career progression itself. Is this just itself leads to career progression? I don't think so. And it really depends on lots of factors. So I probably wouldn't say, if you go for this or this, really nothing guarantees career progression. It's a really mix of lots of things. But does it help? I definitely think so. But as I said, I really think it's what we make out of it. And I also think for me, but this is really personal, the more I do, the more confidence I have to go forward. So it's kind of everything, one thing leads to another. But does it help? Yes, definitely. Does it guarantee? Nothing does.
No, absolutely not.
Yes, I don't know if I help with this really, but I think if nothing else for me, even if it didn't lead to any career progression, it really just that reflective practice for my own work. I know it helped me do work better, and for me that means a lot. For other people might mean something else, but for me, that is the first thing. Regarding career progression, I do think that comes later. When we have more confidence, when we do more things, I think we have more energy to push forward. And then that's why I say it can lead to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you
Can
so
I-
much.
Can I jump in with just one follow-up in relation to that? As the manager who put her hands in Jasmina's back to force her down this road, cruel manager that I am. Sadly, no automatic upgrade comes with AFHEA, but I'm sure many of the people who are involved in recruitment would recognize this. If I saw an application for somebody who had taken that step, it would change the way I look at that application, of course. So I suppose it comes down to what is the next job, but I think it's a massive achievement, and I'm so proud, and I'm glad it's being recorded. I'm so proud of Jasmina and her achievement, and my other colleagues who have also gone through that step of making the effort to get a teaching recognition on the work that they did, much more explicitly involved in teaching. And so all the more reason that I'm proud of Jasmina, and will be encouraging the rest of the team to go down that route as well. I'm going to stop flogging Cambridge now and my lovely team.
Great, thank you, Isla. Brilliant, thank you. That was a really interesting talk, and yeah, lots of food for thought, I'm sure. Great, we will take a break there.